Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Transformation Talk. I am here today with Tova Gold, who is the founder, imagination, and sparkle behind findingmymuchness.com. She is the mother of 4 little girls, 2 of whom were stillborn. And Tova, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
And we connected, just a couple of weeks ago, and you emailed me and I went to your site and I immediately just was like smiling and so happy because it's sparkly and beautiful and fun, and I love that it came from such a deep place of pain. So can you tell us your story and the story of Sunshine and Daisy?
Yeah. Wow. You know, it's even just hearing their names out loud, you know, because so much of what I do is online. That's kind of cool. So yeah, I guess I'll start. My second pregnancy, I had a 1-year-old daughter at home, and my second pregnancy, I found out at 5 weeks that we were expecting identical twins, which was really a shock. Me and my husband, we had always been like, we're going to have 2, and we already had one. So when at the appointment, they were like, oh, there's one and there's another. No, that's not us. You're wrong. But also at that first appointment, with identical twins, you know, there's a lot of high-risk things. And they saw indications that, like, there's supposed to be a membrane between the 2. And the membrane was there, but she wasn't quite sure. So she's like, I'm just going to send you for a high-level ultrasound. And don't worry, blah, blah, blah. So I came home, of course, worried. And I went online, and I started, which they say don't do, but I disagree. And I started researching complications from identical twin pregnancies, like what can go wrong. And it was through all of that research I came upon twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. So really early on, I kind of knew that this existed. And, you know, we went for our high-level ultrasound. Everything looked good. They saw the membrane. They were like, you know, technically it's a high-risk pregnancy, but don't worry about it. So I tried not to worry about it, though I did go home and do more research. And, but, you know, we were like, okay, twins. We found out at, I think, 14 weeks that they were girls. And the signs for TTTS, twin transfusion syndrome is TTTS, really don't show up until about 16 weeks. So at our 16-week ultrasound, we went. I wasn't really thinking about it. And the doctor, you know, the ultrasound tech did her thing, and then the doctor took us in his office, and he said that he saw early warning signs that we didn't have, you know, there was no diagnosis, but the first sign of it is an imbalance of fluid between the 2 babies, and he saw an imbalance. It wasn't extreme, but it was there. And since I had done all this research, I asked him a bunch of questions, and basically he was like, don't worry about it, let me worry about it. I was like, I don't really like that answer. And then he said that because they were seeing warning signs this early, it was unlikely my babies were going to make it to the end of my pregnancy. And there wasn't really anything to do right now except go home and wait. He said 2 weeks, and come back in 2 weeks and see what's happened. Like, they could be gone in 2 weeks, or maybe it'll self-correct in 2 weeks. And then he said, oh, I have to go teach a class now. And he left me and my husband sitting in his office, like dumbfounded.
Oh, my God.
It was pretty rough, especially since we'd waited like an hour in the waiting room. Like, you don't have any more time for us. So we went home, and again, I did more research and started, you know, looking for other doctors. I called him back and said, I don't want to wait 2 weeks. That seems pretty stupid. I'd like to come back next week. And he said, oh, well, I'm on vacation next week. That's why I told you 2 weeks. I was like, okay, time for a new doctor. So I started researching around, and there's a TTTS specialist in Manhattan. And so I called them, and they were like, come in right away. You know, we're going to start just doing tests, seeing what's going on. They really took care of me. And we went in, and they said, you know, there's early warning signs, there's imbalance, but it's the way TTTS goes, it's in stages. You're diagnosed in stages, and we weren't even stage 1. There's 5 stages, stage 5 being the death of one or more of the babies. And we weren't even stage 1, so they were like, we'll monitor you weekly, and they did all these tests. And basically unless you are qualified for treatment, there's not much you can do until you qualify. And we didn't qualify because we were so borderline. So between 16 weeks and 23 weeks, we still never technically qualified. We stayed borderline stage 1. We went every single week, once or twice, for high-level ultrasounds and, cardiac ultrasounds, brain ultrasounds. Because with TTTS, there are so many things that can go wrong before, unfortunately, death. I mean, and the lifetime consequences of this disease are traumatic and heartbreaking. So they monitor everything. And our babies were testing fine. We never had any secondary warning signs. We never even exceeded into officially stage 1. And then sometime between 23 and 24 weeks, between our 22nd and 23rd week ultrasounds, they died. We lost them. We went in for our ultrasound. I was finally starting to feel better, and one had passed away, and by the end of the week, the other one was gone too. Because babies are connected, basically there's one placenta that feeds both babies, and their blood flow goes from one to the other. And when one dies, the impact on the other one. And it really shocked us. Even our doctors, who were specialists, were shocked. They said they'd never seen it go from, borderline stage 1 to stage 5 in that short amount of time like that. And we had never even qualified for laser treatment, which they go in and they separate the veins and arteries on the surface of the placenta that transfuse the blood between the two, ideally giving each baby enough share to sustain them to the end of the pregnancy healthfully. After they died, I thought we would grieve and then we would move on. I thought, like most people think, we knew we were high risk the whole time. Technically, we knew that this could happen even though we didn't believe it or know what it really meant until it. And so we started out this grieving process in that way. I remember saying to my husband, I'm on these grief support sites online and these groups, and there are these women 2 and 3 and 4 years out from their loss, and they're still there. I was like, ooh, like I said to him, they probably need help. Here I am 3.5 years later. And I said, and some of them, they have, their babies cremated and they have them in their living room on the mantle. I was like, that seemed so strange to me at the time. And I said, and their other children know about them. And I remember he looked at me like horror. He's like, oh, you're not going to want to do that, right? And I was like, no. And it was the process of learning what grief is and how strong it can be that really taught me what I needed to know to get to where I am, to get through the grief. I wasn't going to get through it by being like, oh yeah, that thing, that happened. Put it away on a shelf and move on. And as a person in my real life prior to this, I am a very okay, let's move on. I don't wallow a lot. I complain a lot, but I don't wallow, on things and breakups, okay, over, who's the next? So I kind of thought I would bring that to this, and it just didn't happen like that. It was a good year of consistent in my head all the time grief. And I got pregnant again very quickly. I got pregnant within 3 months. And it was within that pregnancy that I realized how much this grief, I was scared of it. I was scared. Oh, I come to understand it. I was there, but I didn't want the rest of my life to be shadowed by it.
Right.
And when I got pregnant, I remember lying in bed, I had so much anger and so much sadness and so much of all this stuff. I literally felt like like I was like black ashes inside. Like under my skin, I felt like that. And then I'm a very visual person. I visualized like this little baby growing in all of that darkness. And I was like, I didn't want her. I didn't want to do that to her, you know? I didn't want to spend the pregnancy feeling like that, but you can't just turn it off. And so I made this conscious decision, you know, when I went out and started buying maternity clothes, because I'd thrown out all my other maternity clothes, I started buying like sequins, like bright, colorful, sparkly, light, kind of kooky clothing, just to sort of bring light back to me, kind of to reach to her, you know, a little bit in there. And I started feeling like, oh, when I wear these like funner, colorful clothes instead of my like dreary, disgusting clothes that make me feel like horrible, I felt a little better. And I started talking about it on my like grief support sites. And I swear, like, people would like post like really serious things like, oh, I'm having a moment of grief, or it's a, you know, the anniversary. And I'd be like, you should try wearing sequins. Like, out of this group, like, they're like, what am I talking about? And then I started receiving emails from women like, oh, I had this thing to go to and I was feeling just horrible, and I bought myself a sparkly headband. Or I drove by a store and there were all these sparkly clothes inside and it made me smile. And I was like, there's like something here, you know? It was just sort of something that grew out of me, and it made me feel better. And even through this internet, it was making other people smile. And then I read on a friend's Facebook wall the line, I used to be much, muchier, but then I lost my muchness. And it was like thunderbolts like went off. I was like, oh, muchness. Like, that's the word. That's what this is doing to me. It's helping me tap into joy I used to know, and this thing, and this, all of this creativity and happiness and me. And so that day, on a whim, I was like, oh, I wonder if I have enough sequins in my closet to wear them every day for 30 days straight. Just like a random thing. And I started doing it. I started posting on Facebook, like a picture every day on my private wall. And like by day 4 and day 5, it was like I could feel like the support rallying around me, and people were commenting, being like, oh my God, I don't know what this muchness is, but it's fun. And I was just posting like my, you know, my t-shirts and my this and my that, my pants. And then I started having more confidence. Like, I found like, oh, people are going to look for my picture. What can I do today? And things that I had bought because I loved them but didn't have like the guts to really wear, I started wearing them because I was like, oh, I got to get creative now. And the more I did it, the more it just filled me, you know? And the more people responded, the more I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is helping people. People are finding happiness again. Like baby lost moms. I had a bunch of baby lost mom friends in my Facebook, and they were like, how do I get my muchness, Tova? Help me. I want my muchness, you know. I could never wear sequins, they'd say, but I want my muchness. And it just grew. It grew into this movement, the muchness movement. After my 30 days, I started my website, my blog, where I would just, you know, blog about these sparkly, muchy things that I was doing. And people emailed me and were like, I want to take the muchness challenge. So I, you know, found a developer, and I figured out how to get them to be able to sign onto the site and create an account and take their own muchness challenge. And it's very self-directed. It's very like, find what it is that moves you, you know, it's some creative outlet for you, or some personal thing that you sort of put aside because it didn't seem important, but that fills you. And just even in tiny little doses, just bring it in every single day, acknowledge it, and it just compounds upon itself. And you look back after 30 days of like, I mean, it could be anything. It could even just be like, I stopped taking care of myself, so I'm just going to wear lipstick every day. I'll take a picture of lipstick, you know? After 3 or 4 days, you're going to be like, maybe I'll try some blush too. And, you know, by the time you're done, you've grown. And you look back and you're like, wow, how did that happen in these tiny little bitty steps? And yeah, now I'm just kind of riding this and taking it wherever it takes me.
Well, and I love to, excuse me, you have some fun merchandise on the site, and my favorite thing, and I think, are you wearing one?
Of course, I always wear one, almost always.
Yeah. So I haven't ordered one yet because I can't figure out which color I want first, but tell us about the muchness bands.
Yeah, the muchness bands. So like I said, people were like, oh, how can I get muchness in my life? And a lot of people were like, oh, I can't wear sequins. And I was like, first of all, anyone can wear sequins. You just got to start small. But So I created these little, they're silk and sequin, and they're these little muchness bands, and they come in all different colors, and each color has like a different theme or word of like strength or empowerment, something that you want to maintain with you. And they're literally, they're a physical reminder to look for those muchness moments, that there is, even in the, like when you're trapped in darkness, there's light and there's color and there's beauty and blessings all around you. And it's, sometimes you need a physical reminder. And they all have inspirational quotes on the inside. This one's by Maya Angelou. And they've got these little secret pockets over here in the side. And they come with what I call wish strips. It's a little booklet of papers. And on them, I encourage you to write like your secret dreams or wishes. Sometimes I write like my daughter's names and just stick them in there. And like I have them, you know, on my around my computer or by my rearview mirror. And like you kind of see them. And if you know what it means, and you know that the quote inside is a quote about strength or light, it just reminds you. And it's cool. It's awesome. Like, yeah, I wear them all the time. I give them to friends when I know they're going through a hard time. Yeah, and like people customize them on the inside. And on my website, you can do that. Like it comes with certain quotes that you can pick, or you could customize with your baby's name or anybody's name or whatever it is that means something to you. Yeah, so much.
I love it. And the other thing too is that we all, most of us as adults, and I think you said this on your site, is we need to find our muchness. You know, we work totally ourselves as kids, and then we just start putting that aside as we become responsible and adults, and we have jobs and, you know, kids and all this stuff, and to really find the fun in finding that, because sometimes personal growth work can be so serious.
Yes.
And a lot of work, and just even the words that we use, like I'm working on myself, you know, and so I love that it's just this sparkly, fun, colorful.
It is, and it's also tiny little steps, because I know I'm not. If somebody said to me, "Oh, you got to work on that," I'd be like, "I got to go elsewhere," because I don't. But even when I did my first Muchness Challenge and I did it on Facebook, like some people who did it on my site, they would come and they would journal every day for 30 days and really explore their emotions and how they were changing and what they felt. When I did it, I literally, sometimes it would just be a picture. I wouldn't even write anything. And it wasn't a picture of anything well thought out. It was like, oh, look at my t-shirt. Like, yet maintaining that momentum with those days. And like one sentence, all of my days were basically 1 or 2 sentences. It just was a tiny little step, but made over those 30 days a tremendous impact in everything. Like it, and I know it changed other people reading it, and it wasn't profound. I wasn't being like oh, let me get to the depths of you know, self-love and all of this. It was just like, hey, check out my secret.
Yeah, you were having fun, and I think that's, as adults, man, we need more fun in our lives, you know.
And it's, you know, it's funny, even before all of this, years ago, I remember saying, like, when we were kids, when I was younger and, you know, in school, like, and you have all these different friends and they all have these different personalities doing different things. And then at some point, like, as an adult, you look around and you're like, everybody kind of, a lot of people, like, they shave off their edges and their uniqueness, and they just kind of like, okay, in order to get that job, I need to be that way. Or in order to get that man, I need to be that way. In order to be friends with those people, I need to be that way. And then they all just, you lose sight of those things that are like, no, this is how I am. You know, not what they want or what they want or what they want or what they need.
Yeah. So in your community on your site, you have a lot of baby lost moms and baby lost parents. But do you have other people as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's also something that I'm trying to figure out, because I speak directly to the baby lost moms because that's my story and that's what I know. But the muchness overall, it reaches everybody. The concept reaches everybody. People sign up that are not baby lost moms because it resonates with them, because they've lost their muchness. Yeah. And maybe it's a specific event. Maybe, you know, I've had people who have like chronic illness and disease, divorce, assault, like they've been abuse, or even just like, or postpartum, all of it, you know, whatever it is that kind of you look at and you're like, oh, that happened. And before that, oh, like I remember when I was like, I can't believe I was ever like that. How do I get back to being like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And mine started before my baby loss is the truth. Like I, in my 20s, had my own business. I started a handbag business when I was in my early 20s. I was like, I can change the world with a handbag. And I thought I could do anything. And then after like 7 years, I found like a large handbag company to adopt me. And I was like, this was like my big break. And then they totally didn't follow through. And it was horrible. I was heartbroken. And I closed my business. And I was like, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to go get a job and collect the salary and like go home and do that. And that's what I was doing for all those years, you know, until very recently, actually. But when I wasn't doing the entrepreneurial thing, when I was telling myself the story in my head of not wanting to because I was going to get screwed over again, it kind of was the beginning of my loss of muchness. When I got screwed over in my handbag, I had to close my handbag business because I couldn't keep up with all the things they promised that I couldn't deliver. And, you know, I was just living whatever.
Living smaller than you.
Yeah.
Than you could.
Yeah. And I did struggle with it, but I also wasn't ready to make any kind of changes. You know, I had my young daughter. My husband was awesome. Like I had all of these things that were great. And I was telling myself, well, I have all of these things that are great. What am I going to put it all on the line to, you know, do my own business? Like it would just seem illogical. And, you know, but then after the girls, that really just dropped me so far down that there was nowhere else to go but up. And I had to revive those dreams, and I had to follow them. Like it took me 3 years after my loss till I left my job. I didn't know how I was going to leave, what I was going to leave. I still honestly don't know exactly what I'm thinking. But I went back. I was reading recently on one of the grief support sites that I had frequented a lot early on. And 3 months after my loss, I had written like, oh, these losses really make you think about the fact that you're living on autopilot. And, you know, maybe I even wrote then, like, maybe one day I will start something again. You know, maybe there is that fire that I had almost intentionally extinguished was starting to come back. I just didn't know how it would find me. And now all of this, like now I say the muchness is my muchness. You know?
Yeah.
And hearing from women and talking to them and seeing them grow and like see moments of light in the things that I teach or just share. And, you know, having women post on my Facebook page like, oh, I was shopping, look at these crazy shoes. Like that just gets crazy. I'm like, it's so stupid, but it's not. So yeah, it's just a real culmination of so many things that are parts of me that have found this voice through the muchness. And it's awesome.
I love it. And I just want to say too, on your site earlier, you said that, you know, you didn't want to have your daughter, Sunshine and Daisy, in your life and all this stuff. And now you've got, I mean, obviously they're a part of your life, and you've got a beautiful picture on your site with them, on how you've included them in your family with this photo, and just how necessary it is to continue the relationship, whether it's a child who's died or a parent or a friend or a spouse or whatever it is, to keep them in our hearts and our lives.
Finding ways to really cherish their memory and make, for me, it was about making their existence make my life better. You know, that they were, yeah, they brought me so much heartache, but they were a gift, you know, and you wouldn't take a gift and shove it in the back closet, a gift that you love, and shove it in the back closet and pretend it wasn't there. You would, you know, put it on your mantle.
Yeah, they're a big part of your muchness.
Yeah, they're...
All right, I want to ask you my last 3 questions. So, if you could wave a magic wand and change anything about the world, what would you change?
I've thought about these questions. I was like, ooh, these are tough. For me, I think that judgment, I think we go around judging everybody on these superficial things, on things that we can't necessarily even know how we would be in those situations. And we, you know, assume things and we judge, and then we do the same thing to ourselves. Once we start judging other people, we get on ourselves and we don't even realize it. So just, I mean, we judge each other's parenting, we judge each other's clothes, we judge each other's everything. Especially like for me, clothes. Like I used to in college wear kooky clothes, and then somewhere in my 20s I lost the confidence to do that because people might judge me. Now I'm like, judge me, because I know I dress tacky sometimes. I don't care. It makes me happy. So that judgment of those things that we don't really know, I get rid of it. Just put it away.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna have to start wearing more sequins.
It's really awesome. It's so strange because it is so. I mean, I come from a fashion industry. You know, I grew up in the fashion industry, and my job was as an art director at a clothing and accessory company. And so, on the one hand, I'm like, you know, sequins, like you could wear them, but like they're an extreme statement in some ways. And I'm like, anyone, you could incorporate them anyhow, even if you're like more reserved or, you know, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and I love how my daughter, you know, she just gravitates towards them, you know, sparkly tights or sparkly shoes or something with rhinestones around the collar or a big sparkly, it's just such a fun thing to do, and we just lose it along the way.
Adults do too. We also gravitate towards it, and then we turn ourselves off from it. Yeah. It's like when you go to the manicurist and you, like, there's that whole wall of color, and you're like drawn to like a bright, beautiful, bold pink, and then you pick up the neutral. And you're like, here, do my nails this color. Well, why? If that pink is like, even on that wall, like drawing you, imagine looking at it every time you're typing, or like every time you look at it will, like, you think someone's going to be like, oh, she's wearing some crazy pink nail polish. Like, mostly nobody cares. Or they're just going to be like, oh, nice nail polish. And you're just happy about it. You just get afraid. There's like, afraid of these little things that, yeah.
Being too big, I think, you know, we're taught, especially as women, that we can't be too big, take up too much space. Okay, so next question. What brings you the most joy right now?
Well, I feel my family, you know, obviously. But like what I was saying before, like the muchness, like doing it and connecting with these women and hearing from them and seeing them recognize even that there's an alternative to how to process this grief long term or this trauma or whatever it is that's kind of got them, or even just like life, you know, but seeing that there's that possibility to make it into something beautiful. And like when sometimes I can see in their comments that the spark, like the light bulb goes off, like, oh, I don't have to be like buried under guilt, and I don't have to be buried under sadness, and I don't have to, you know, be crying to be thinking of my child, you know, and it's just all of that. And then, you know, when they wear cool shoes and sparkles.
That's great. I love it. Okay, last question. Aside from your love of sequins, what is one fun or interesting fact that makes you uniquely you?
So this one I thought about a lot because I was like, oh, there's so many. I was like, first I was going to go with, I'll tell you my first answer because I like it. When I was in high school, I found a vintage disco ball at like a garage sale. And it has followed me through like 8 different, like through college and all my different houses. And now it's professionally installed in my family room with spotlights on it. That's not what it is. It's not my answer. Actually, my answer what makes me uniquely me, and I think what drives a lot of what started me to do this, I think back, my family, my grandparents, all 4 of them are Holocaust survivors. And they came here after the war, and they all, you know, made impressive lives for themselves. And 2 of them, my mother's father and my father's mother, both have written books, their memoirs that have been published, of their story in the war. And my maternal grandmother now, she travels to schools and universities talking about her story, sharing it with the next generation. And I think that somewhere along the line, that idea of we take our pain and we take what is our learning experience, whether we wanted it or not, and we use it to do something positive for somebody else, I think, I should be so lucky that I have that, blood. But I do think that is part of what fuels me is this thing that they've done it. A lot of people did come here after the war and kind of bottle it up and put it on a shelf, and I'm sure it fell out in other ways, as it always does. But yeah, just embracing those things in whatever way you need to in order to learn and help and grow. So that's my answer.
Wow. Wow, I got total goosebumps. And I love that two things that define you are a disco ball and the legacy of the Holocaust. Like, that just, to me, encompasses, it's just so much. So much.
Yeah, that really is, I guess, my grandmother, the one who travels around, she actually has written on my website. She blogged about her muchness, and she's like one of my biggest supporters. She just thinks it's fantastic what I'm doing, and she calls me all the time. Oh my, like, she didn't even know. Like, I'd write a blog post and she'll read it, and she's like, I didn't even know that stuff existed inside of you, because before all of this, I was me doing my thing. I was, self-involved a lot more, and just, and then I write these things, and they're like the people in my real world are like, really? Like, you wrote that? Like, that came out of you? Like, you feel those things? I'm like, yeah, I guess I do. So yeah, it's cool that that I am so close to my grandmother. She reads it, she writes on the site, and
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Tova, for your first email and contacting me, and for this interview, and for doing what you do. And everybody, go check out findingmymuchness.com, check out the Muchness bands, pick your favorite color, put it on your wish list, and find your muchness. Thank you so much.
It was so great to be here. Thank you.